Hello everyone. In this video we shall cover the next aspect of the pharmacokinetics, that is distribution of the drug. Okay, now let us see what is the definition of distribution. So distribution, it is the reversible movement of the drug from one compartment of the body to another. So if we consider that the body is made up of several compartments like vascular compartment, so blood makes up one compartment, extracellular fluids, then the several tissues. Okay, so it is made up of different compartments. So a drug may make certain movements from one area to another. Okay, so that reversible movement, meaning once the drug has moved from one compartment to another, it can even come back. Okay, so it's a reversible movement from one compartment of the body to another. Okay, now once the drug, it reaches the systemic circulation. Okay, so after the drug is administered, it will get absorbed, as we have seen earlier. Okay, so it will reach into the systemic circulation or the bloodstream. So once it is in the blood will take it to the different tissues. Okay, so it will get distributed to the other tissues, okay, where initially there was no drug. So first time when you are administering a particular drug, it will reach your blood circulation and blood will take it to the other tissues of the body which initially had no drug. Okay, and the concentration gradient, that is movement of this drug, will take place in the direction from the plasma to the tissues, because the concentration in the tissues was zero and the plasma will have certain amount of drug. So there is a gradient, there is a difference in concentration. So a drug will move from the area of higher concentration to the area of lower concentration. In case of passive diffusion, of course it depends upon the type of process which is involved in the movement across the membrane, as we have covered earlier. Okay, now the extent of distribution, that is how much of the drug will get distributed, so that will get dependent upon the lipid solubility. First of all, in the distribution we have seen that the drug will have to move across a particular membrane. So in order to cross a particular membrane, a lipid solubility is a must, because we have seen that the membrane is lipoidal in nature. Okay, so if it does not involve any use of any transporters or channels, then it has to cross that lipoidal layer. Okay, so your drug has to have the lipid solubility. Then even the ionization at a particular physiological pH, so that will also determine. Specifically in case of passive diffusion, pH plays a very important role, because it determines the amount of drug which will remain in the ionized or unionized state. Then the extent of binding to the plasma and tissue proteins, how much of the drug is getting bound to the plasma proteins or tissue proteins, so that will also determine the distribution, because anything which is bound to the plasma protein or tissue protein, that will not be available to cross across the membrane. Okay, then the presence of tissue specific transporters. So if there are certain transporters that can move the drug across the membrane, so that will also alter the distribution. Also the differences in the regional blood flow, we have seen that under the CVS, that all the areas are not receiving the same amount of blood. Okay, the vital organs, they receive more amount of blood, right, as compared to the other organs. Okay, so distribution also depends upon how much is the blood flow in that particular area. So more the blood flow, more will be the distribution of that drug. Of course other factors also play a role in that. Okay, now this movement of drug, up to how long this movement of the drug will take place. Okay, that is the distribution, that is a reversible movement in between the different compartments. So how long it will take place? So it's not that a drug which is present in the plasma, entire thing will not enter into your tissue. It is moving from plasma to certain tissue. So whatever entire amount is there in the plasma, whole thing will not go into the tissues, right? Okay, so this particular transfer from the plasma to the tissue or from one compartment to the another compartment, it will continue till the equilibrium is established. Okay, equilibrium does not mean that there should be equal concentrations. Okay, it does not mean that here it is 50 milligrams per liter and in tissues also it is 50 milligrams per liter. It's not like that. Okay, so any particular drug, it depends upon the property of that particular drug, that how much will be the amount which is present in the plasma and how much is the amount present in the tissues. So there is a particular state wherein the amounts of the drug are distributed in a particular manner. Okay, so that state is known as the equilibrium and it is constant. Okay, so in case if due to some reason there is a change in the amount of drug in the plasma, correspondingly there will be changes in the amount which is present in the tissues. If there is a decline over here, whatever is present in the tissues, that will come out and it will try to balance. Again it will try to maintain the equilibrium. Okay, so this movement, it continues till there is a movement. So in case if in any compartment, if there is a decrease in the amount, it will try to balance again, rebalance it. So it will try to maintain its equilibrium. Okay, and a time will come wherein there will be a parallel decline in both due to elimination. Okay, so any drug which enters into your body, ultimately it will be removed. It will either get metabolized or it will get excreted out of the body. Okay, so due to elimination there will be parallel decline in both. Why parallel is because any one compartment, if there is a decrease in concentration, it will try to match with the other one. Okay, so there is a equilibrium. So ultimately there will be the decline in both the levels. Okay, levels at both the situation. Now there is one particular concept called as apparent volume of distribution. Okay, so how you measure the distribution of a particular, what is the parameter which is helping you to identify how the drug is distributed. Okay, so that parameter is apparent volume of distribution. Just in case of absorption, we have seen that absorption can be measured with the help of a parameter known as bioavailability. So in the same way, apparent volume of distribution helps you to identify what is the type of distribution of that particular drug has taken place. Okay, now let us see what exactly this apparent volume of distribution is. Now, presuming that your body behaves as one particular homogeneous compartment, usually it is not. Usually the body is made up of different compartments, we have seen earlier. Okay, now here imagine as if your body is one homogeneous compartment which is having a volume V, which is indicated by capital V, into which your drug is getting distributed. Okay, maybe immediately, once you administered, immediately it will get distributed uniformly throughout your body. Now practically it does not happen, so you're presuming something. Okay, so when you consider this particular situation, you can calculate this particular volume of distribution. Okay, volume of distribution, apparent volume of distribution. Okay, now what is the formula for calculation of volume of distribution? It's given by dose which is administered by IV route divided by plasma concentration. Now why you have considered your dose administered by IV route is because whatever is administered intravenously, entire drug will reach your systemic circulation, is what we have considered under the routes of administration, right? We have seen that IV meaning you're placing your drug directly into your bloodstream. So there is 100% bioavailability. So that's why you're considering this particular route. If you consider oral route, 100% bioavailability will not be there. Okay, so here in calculation of the volume of distribution, you consider the dose which is administered by IV route divided by what is the plasma concentration. So you can calculate by substituting these two. Supposing if you have administered 1000 milligrams of your drug, it is injected by IV route, and the plasma concentration which is measured, it is found to be 50 milligrams per liter, then volume of distribution will be 1000 divided by 50. So that will come to 20 liters. So here the unit was milligrams and here it was milligrams per liter. So milligram will get cancelled and the liter, it will come into the numerator. So volume of distribution of this particular drug which is administered 1000 milligrams by IV route and whose plasma concentration at a particular time is 50 milligrams per liter is 20 liters. Okay, so apparent volume of distribution for this particular instance, it is 20 liters. So this indicates that your drug, this drug 1000 milligrams of your drug is distributed in 20 liters of your total volume of your body fluids. Now actually this particular parameter, apparent volume of distribution, it has nothing to do with the actual volume of distribution. Now what we have found out, that the volume of distribution in this example which we have considered, it is 20 liters. So is it that this particular 1000 milligrams of drug which you have administered, it is distributed only in the 20 liters of your body fluid, excluding the remaining? Is it possible? No, it is not possible. It is practically impossible that your drug will get distributed only in a particular volume of your body fluids, right? So that's why the term apparent is used over here. Okay, so it's just a theoretical value, apparent volume of distribution. So this can be defined, an actual definition of this apparent volume of distribution is the volume that would accommodate all the drug in the body if the concentration throughout was the same as in plasma. Okay, so the volume of your body fluids that would accommodate all the drug, meaning whatever is administered. In case of IV, it will be 100% which is absorbed, right? So that particular drug, in how much volume of your body fluids it will get distributed, considering that the concentration throughout was the same as in plasma. Now this also is not practically possible. Okay, the concentration of that drug will not be same as that in the plasma. It won't be throughout, it won't be same. Okay, but since this is a theoretical value. Now when this particular volume of distribution, apparent volume of distribution, it has nothing to do with the actual volume of distribution, then what is the significance? Why are we finding out the volume of distribution? Because this particular volume of distribution, apparent volume of distribution along with drug clearance, it's a very important pharmacokinetic concept. Okay, now before going into what is the importance of this volume of distribution or apparent volume of distribution, let us see what are the volumes of the different compartments of the body fluids. Okay, say vascular fluid or the ones which is present in the blood vessels, that is the blood, volume is approximately 6 liters. Plasma volume is approximately 3 liters. Then the extracellular fluids, that is excluding plasma, we have considered plasma is also an ECF, a type of ECF, right, for blood. Okay, so blood is a type of connective tissue and the extracellular fluid over there is plasma. So excluding plasma, rest of the body, extracellular fluid, it amounts to 12 liters. Intracellular fluids, that is the fluid present within the cell, excluding the blood cells, because we have considered it over here. Okay, so intracellular fluid excluding the blood cells, it is around about 24 liters. So total body volume, it comes out to be say around about 42 liters. Okay, now what is the importance of this apparent volume of distribution, what it signifies? Okay, so apparent volume of distribution, as we have seen, that it is a parameter to measure the distribution. So you will get an idea exactly where your drug is distributed. Okay, now let us take a few examples that will make the picture more clearer as to what is the importance of this volume of distribution. Okay, now in case of lipid insoluble drugs, say supposing if the drugs are lipid insoluble, so they will not enter the cell, because in case they have to enter the cell by passive diffusion, which is the most common method, so they have to have lipid solubility. So because this particular drugs are lipid insoluble, they cannot enter the cell. So volume of distribution of such type of drug will approximate towards the volume of the ECF. Okay, like say for example streptomycin, gentamicin. In case of these drugs, the volume of distribution is 0.25 liters per kg. Okay, so it is expressed in terms of per kg. Now considering if then an average adult, it has a weight of 50 kg, so you can easily find out what is the volume of distribution in an adult, right? So it can be found out by multiplying by the weight of that particular person. Say average adult has a weight of 50 kgs, so this is the volume of distribution per kg. So you can find out by multiplying it with 50. So 0.25 multiplied by 50, it will give you 12.5. so it is approximately the volume of the ECF, right? Volume of ECF is 12, so it is round about 12. So this indicates that the drug is distributed in the mainly in the ECF. It is restricted towards the ECF. Okay, now distribution, it is not just a matter of dilution, but here binding and sequestering also should be taken into consideration, because that will restrict your drug towards a particular type of compartment. Like say for example, if a drug is highly bound to plasma proteins. Okay, so plasma proteins are the ones which are present in your blood, right? So what will happen if your drug is present bound to the plasma proteins? So anything which is bound to the proteins, it cannot cross the membrane, right? Because the size is very big. So what will happen if a drug is extensively bound to the plasma proteins? It will remain restricted to the vascular compartment. That is, it will remain restricted to your blood. It will not be able to cross the membrane and reach the tissues. Okay, so what will happen? They will have a low values, okay, of the of your volume of distribution, which will approximate round about your volume of the vascular fluid. Okay, say for example diclofenac and warfarin, the volume of distribution is approximately 0.15 liters per kg. So same way you can calculate it for an average adult with 50 kgs of weight. 0.15 multiplied by 50, that will give you 7.5. So here it is, since it is bound to your plasma proteins, volume approximates the volume of your vascular fluids, right? So it's 7.5. Okay, now a large value of V, that is the volume of distribution, it indicates that larger quantities of your drug is present in the extravascular tissue. Okay, now when will your volume of distribution have very large values? We know what is the formula: amount of drug which is administered by IV route divided by plasma concentration. Okay, so when will be the volume of distribution having very large value? When the value in the denominator will be very low. So plasma concentration, if it is very low, what will it do to the volume of distribution? The value of your volume of distribution will be very large, right? So this indicates that very less amount of your drug is present in your plasma. Rather, where it has gone into the extravascular tissues. So this indicates a very large volume of distribution. It indicates that your drug is mainly present in the extravascular tissues. It is not present, a very less amount is present into your blood. Okay. On the other hand, the drugs which are sequestered into the other tissues, they will have the volume of distribution which is very much large. Okay, it will be even more than the total body volume. Okay, so the total body fluid volume, it is 42 approximately is what we have seen, right? Now if you consider these few examples, digoxin 6 liters per kg, so it will be 6 multiplied by 50, that is 300. 300 liters is the volume of distribution. In case of propranolol, it is 200. Okay, now actual volume is 42, but the volume of distribution of these drugs is much large, right? Now why it is so large? That's because they are mainly bound into the other tissues, so their plasma concentration is very low. So in the calculation, the denominator part, the plasma concentration is very low. That's the reason why the volume of distribution is very large. Okay, so this indicates that there is binding in the other tissues. So if in case of toxicity of these kind of drugs, poisoning has taken place, Okay, they with such drugs which have very large volume of distribution, it's very difficult to remove by this process of hemodialysis, because your drug is not in the blood compartment, right? It is sequestered, it is entered into the tissues. So in case of poisoning by such particular drugs, you may have to find other ways to clear the drug. Okay, then other factors like pathological states such as congestive heart failure or uremia, cirrhosis of liver, these can also alter the volume of distribution of many of the drugs. Okay, by say either altering the distribution of body fluids, the amount of body fluids or body water may change, permeability of the membranes may change, binding proteins, or by accumulation of the metabolites, okay, that displays the drug from the binding. So likewise the volume of distribution may be changed by the pathological phase. So considering all these, the factors governing the volume of distribution include lipid water partition coefficient of the drug. That's very important. That will determine the movement of the drug across the membrane. The pK value of the drug, which will determine the pH. In turn, it will affect the transport across the membrane. The degree of plasma protein binding, because that will restrict the drug to the vascular compartment. Affinity for different tissues. So those drugs which are bound to very different tissues will have very large volume of distribution. Then presence of tissue specific transporters that can move your drug from one compartment to other. Then the difference in the regional blood flow, there may be differences in the blood flow, so that will alter the distribution. Then the fat or lean body mass ratio, which can vary with the age, sex, or obesity. Then of course the disease, as we have seen, CHF, uremia, cirrhosis of liver, this can also alter the volume of distribution. Now there is a concept called redistribution. Now as the name implies, distribution is movement, reversible movement in between different compartments. Okay, now redistribution meaning something which is happening again. So after distribution has taken place, the drug will again make the movement, okay, in between different compartments. So that is a redistribution. Now that's true for drugs which have high lipid solubility. Okay, now when such type of drugs are administered, highly lipid soluble drugs, what will happen? They will enter into the vital organs. Okay, so drugs will enter into vital organs, because these vital organs like your brain, heart, kidney, okay, lungs, these have very high blood flow. So initially your drug will rapidly start entering into these vital organs, but after some time what will happen? Less vascular but more bulky tissues like your muscles, fat, they will start taking up the drug. Okay, so initially whatever has entered into your brain or your heart or kidney, so that will start coming out of these organs. That's because plasma concentration is reduced, right? So initially it has distributed into these organs, later on it will start entering into less vascular tissues, so plasma concentration will fall. So ultimately wherever the drug is present in very high amount, it will be withdrawn from these areas. Okay, now supposing if the site of action of this particular drug was, say for example, brain, so what will happen? Your drug will be removed from the brain, right? So what will happen? The action of your drug may get terminated. Okay, so redistribution may result in termination of the action also, specifically if it is one of the vital organs. Okay, so greater the lipid solubility of the drug, faster will be its redistribution. Okay, now this can be explained with the help of an example. Now, a relatively short hypnotic action, say lasting for 6 to 8 hours, hypnotic action meaning inducing the sleep. Okay, so drugs like diazepam, nitrazepam, they can induce the sleep. So their hypnotic action, it is short lasting, and why it is short lasting? Because this may happen because of the redistribution, because its site of action is brain, and since it is removed from the brain, their action lasts for a short period of time. The actual T half life of this drug, elimination T half life, is more than 30 hours, but the action lasts only for 6 to 8 hours because of the redistribution. It is removed from the brain. Okay, however, when the drug is given repeatedly, so once if you give, the drug will get distributed, it will get redistributed. Now, supposing if you administer the drug again and again, okay, you administer it or administer it through continuous IV infusion or something like that. So, continuously your areas will be filled with your drug. Okay, so there won't be redistribution and termination of action which is taking place. Then, next concept is penetration into the brain and the CSF. So that's very important. Okay, sometimes justification may be asked like highly lipid soluble drugs, they can cross the blood brain barrier. Okay, of course you all have already studied this blood brain barrier. Okay, so what a blood brain barrier is, it is actually the capillaries which are held together by tight junctions. Okay, and these lack the paracellular spaces. Now normal capillary, it has gaps, right, in between the endothelial cells, and the capillaries which are present in the brain, these have tight junctions. These are packed very closely. The endothelial cells lining your capillary is held together with the help of tight junctions, and also paracellular spaces are also not there, if you can see. Okay, plus these capillaries may also be supported with certain glial cell processes. In case of your blood CSF barrier, it may be protected with the help of choroidal epithelium. Okay, so this particular layer, it forms a barrier towards the passage of any kind of drug. Okay, so any substance cannot cross this blood brain barrier. This together constitute the blood brain barrier. So only highly lipid soluble drug, non-polar drugs can cross this lipoidal barrier. Okay, any lipid insoluble polar drug, it cannot cross the blood brain barrier. Okay, so this is the reason. Okay, so entry of non-lipid soluble drugs, it is quite limited across the blood brain barrier. In addition to this, there may be certain efflux transporters like PGP or anion transporters. So anything which is entering into the brain, this PGP, it will remove it out. Okay, so it will be excluded out. So many of the drugs which can enter into the brain, these are removed by the help of these transporters. You can consider one example over here, like dopamine. It cannot cross the blood brain barrier, but the precursor form levodopa, it can cross. So this anti-Parkinsonian drug, actually this is effective, but it has to be given in the prodrug form. So levodopa will cross the blood brain barrier, reach the brain, and here it will get activated into dopamine. Okay, one more concept is the inflammation of the meninges or the brain. So this increases the permeability of these barriers. So if there is inflammation, then any drug can cross the blood brain barrier quite easily. It becomes more permeable. Okay, then there is another barrier, that is enzymatic barrier. There are certain enzymes which are present, like say monoamine oxidase, cholinesterase, and some other enzymes which may be present on the capillary walls or the cells lining them. So any substance cannot enter over there. If at all the substance enter, it will be metabolized by these enzymes. Like for example, catecholamines, 5-HT, serotonin, acetylcholine, they cannot enter the brain very easily. So these enzymes will start hydrolyzing them so that it does not enter the brain. However, this blood brain barrier, it is deficient at the CTZ in the medulla oblongata, chemoreceptor trigger zone. So any drug can gain easy access to this CTZ. Even at certain periventricular sites like anterior hypothalamus, this is also not protected by blood brain barrier. So any drug which is present in the blood can gain access to these areas. Okay, then exit from the brain. Okay, so any drug which has entered the brain, its exit, it is removal from the CSF of the brain, that is not limited, it is unrestricted. Any drug which has entered, it can come out of the brain very easily. Okay, then passage across the placenta. Okay, now just like there is a blood brain barrier, there is also a placental barrier. So the placental membranes are also lipoidal. So they also do not allow any free passage of the non-lipid soluble drug. Only highly lipid soluble drugs can cross the placental membrane. Okay, so also there is one efflux transporter, that is PGP, also at the placenta. Also there are certain other transporters which, you know, any drug if it is entering, that will be removed out with the help of these transporters. Okay, so apart from this, placenta is also a site of drug metabolism, so there is an enzymatic barrier also. So any drugs which reaches there, that will be metabolized. So these are some of the barriers which restrict the entry of the drug across the placenta to reach the fetus. So there is a natural barrier which is existing. However, restricted amount of non-lipid soluble drugs, when they are present in very high concentration and for long time in the maternal circulation, they can gain access to the fetus. So it's better that it is better to avoid any drug during the pregnancy, otherwise it can affect the fetus and teratogenic effects may take place. It can be having adverse effects on the baby which is growing in the womb. Okay, there are certain influx transporters also, that is they can help certain drugs to enter or to cross the placenta also. So as such, placenta is an incomplete barrier, it's not like blood brain barrier. Okay, so almost any drug which is taken by the mother, it can reach the fetus. So it's better to avoid the drugs during the pregnancy. There are very few drugs which are rated safe during the pregnancy. Okay, so the important questions pertaining to this particular concept is the definitions may be asked of distribution or apparent volume of distribution. Then a note on distribution may be asked, or a note on volume of distribution. Factors influencing volume of distribution may be asked, and a note on redistribution also can be asked.